The Blueprint Podcast with David Lamb. How great businesses are built.
Successful entrepreneurs are flexible, if nothing else, ready to respond to sudden and drastic market changes. Today's guest on the Blueprint Podcast has had to exhibit the flexibility of a yoga instructor in the market he's in. Bryan Council is president of Metro Monitor, a business that monitors the media. And the media landscape is ever evolving and shows no signs of settling down. We caught up with Bryan at his home office in downtown Birmingham. Here with Bryan Council, we are in the offices of Metro Monitor. Good to see you, Bryan.
Good to see you, David.
You and I go back a bit of a ways. One of the neat things about this podcast is that it does allow me to kind of spend some time with people I respect and admire, and you are certainly on that list. This business is certainly on that list. So thanks for the time, first of all, for being on the
Glad to do it. It's exciting.
So Metro Monitor is the name of your company. You're president of this organization. Founded by your father?
Father and mother. Yep.
Mother.
Yep.
Okay, Martha
so it's
and Ron.
Definitely a family business.
Right. So for the folks that may not know, what do you do at Metro Monitor?
Okay, what we do is keep people in the know about what's being said about them in the media.
Okay.
So we got our start doing broadcast media. So our tagline is watching the news for you.
Okay.
So there's a lot of news out there. It's constantly being refreshed. Mm-hmm. There's a 24-hour news cycle.
There is.
And it's really difficult for people to always know what's being said about them in the media, particularly companies. Mm-hmm. We work primarily with media relations, corporate communications, or folks within an organization. Right. And they tell us what they're interested in knowing about, and we keep them in the know.
All right. So I don't even know if these folks are your client, but say an Alabama Power wants to keep up with how they are being mentioned in the media, all the different media. You guys keep up with that and kind of report back to them.
That's right, and that's a good example. A utility that may have coverage not only in Birmingham, but Mobile, Huntsville, Dothan.
Right.
If you're sitting here in Birmingham, it's hard for you to keep track of what's being said in Mobile. So that's the problem we solve for our clients is we collect all of the information, whether it's broadcast on TV, online. We're also doing radio content now.
Okay.
So if there's a news program that's radio-oriented, we're monitoring all of that content on behalf of our clients.
Okay.
And then they tell us, if we're interested in power outages, any mention of our brand, we organize that content and then typically send a daily email to our contacts. And it gives them a summary of what's being said, and then they can actually click on and see or hear the audio.
So when did your mom and dad start Metro Monitor?
It's been around for a while, since 1993. Okay. So we're about to get into our 25th year in business, and it's evolved over the years.
Yeah. Tell me, because if you're monitoring media, the media landscape is so different now than it was in 1993.
It is. When we first started, I like to say our competitive advantage was we knew how to program a VCR, and nobody else did.
So the flashing 12.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we started out with 4 VCRs, and a notebook was our database. So
really?
My mom would literally watch 4 stations worth of news and make notes of who was in the media, and then reach out to those folks.
How did they know there was a business opportunity there?
That's a good question. My dad was always in media relations, public relations, and he had a need for this service. So he would get his clients in the media, and then he would run home, try to catch the news on the VCR so he could show his clients how the story played out in the media.
All right, makes
so that
sense.
was kind of the idea. He was like, if I need this, other folks must need it as well.
Yeah.
And that's where it started. And for the longest time, we thought we were the only people doing this kind of business. And then over the years, we started connecting with other players in this industry and learned a lot over the years.
Right. Your father was he seemed to cast a big shadow. I mean, I met your father a couple of times, and he, I would think, kind of following him and working with him and learning from him, I'm sure he was an incredible mentor in terms of how to run this. So, so what was it that your father, what did you learn most from him? Because I guess you worked with him here for a few years.
We did, and my mom's still active in the business. From Dad, we definitely learned how to take care of our customers, and really not worry about competition. What we learned from Dad was to always be better today than we were yesterday.
Right.
And that's kind of been one of our signature things, is to keep evolving the business, keep learning, and remaining relevant to our clients.
Right. And your mom, what less, because you've worked with her, what are her strengths, and what did she bring to the table to make this work?
Well, she's helped us keep it in the road all these years. She was really the founder of the business and the person who ran the business when it wasn't easy.
Right.
You know, with those early years in a business, when you started up, you have to spend a lot of, days and nights working on the weekends, and not necessarily making a lot of money doing it.
Right.
So she's really kind of the person that built the foundation of what we've been able to build here.
Yeah. When was the decision made for you to kind of take the family business over?
That's a good question. Let's see. Prior to joining the business, I worked in the corporate world. I worked for the Federal Reserve for about 3 years, and then I worked at Blue Cross and Blue Shield for about 5 years.
Okay.
But it was always helping this business in the background. I'd come home at night, help out with technology, and then I just kind of drew a line in the sand in the year 2000, said I'm going to make the leap from corporate world to entrepreneurship, and that's when I did it and haven't looked back.
Was that a difficult decision, or did you always kind of know you were going to end up here where you are?
I didn't know if I was going to end up here. I knew I wanted to do something entrepreneurial. Right. I wanted to do my own business, and I had always had an interest in information-based services, and it was good timing. It was right about the time the internet started getting real traction.
Right.
So I had an affection for technology.
Right.
So I was able to leverage all that and place it on top of this existing business.
Did you? I know I don't recall exactly when your father passed away.
A few years ago.
A few years ago. What was so when he passed away? Were you working here then?
Oh yeah, I've been here for 17 years, full time.
17 years.
Yeah, long time.
Wow. And so you all were really closely then together for a few
Absolutely.
years.
Yep.
Yeah. So talk to me about how you keep up when. What is kind of different about Metro Monitor and your clients and your business is that it's kind of shaky ground, because it seems like every 2, 3, 4 years, it's almost like completely different. It just seems hard to keep up. How do you stay relevant when your industry, your livelihood is just so volatile, if you will? Because I mean, you're talking about the media, right? So what? I mean, shows come and go, networks change overnight. There's just a lot of turnover and shakeup. Right. So how do you stay relevant?
We keep doing more and more for our clients. So when we started out just doing the news here in Birmingham, recording 4 TV stations, we kept evolving. So geographically, we've expanded to do the whole country.
Okay.
So anytime the news is on anywhere, we're recording it and archiving it and keeping a database of everything that's said.
Okay.
Over the years, we've also added online content. So obviously that's been a big change over the years. So much news is now digested online, on your mobile phone, through Facebook, all these different media outlets. So we've had to add social media as a component, a thing we look at. Recently, we've added radio content. So there's still a lot of great news that happens in your car, listening to the radio.
Right.
And then we've also, literally as of last week, added podcast monitoring. Wow. So we now have a collection of podcasts that we run through our indexing engine and create text. And so if our clients mentioned in a podcast, they're going to know about it.
So you all, your clients, do you target the nation in terms of who your clients are?
We do. We're particularly strong in the Southeast because that's where we've kind of grown up over the years. Right. But yeah, we have clients in San Francisco, New York, all over.
Right.
Yeah.
What's kind of the wheelhouse of Metro Monitor? What do you think you all are just best at, and what is your A game in this industry?
Yep. We focus on what I would call the mid-market organization, somebody that is a newsmaker, that's in the news with some frequency. We're not looking for the person that just had one story today and it's never going to be in the news again. Our particular sweet spot is that client that's local in nature but has a high level of frequency in the news. So it can be a utility, a college or university, a hospital chain, anybody that's, you hear them regularly in the news. That's who we're going to try to attract as a client.
Did it ever get, have you ever considered selling? Have you ever considered, because I would think there's a part of it, as I listen to you, and I'm entrepreneurial too, but there's a part, like if you're selling houses, that's a pretty simple, folks need houses, folks need to sell houses, folks need to buy houses, right?
That's right.
It was the same thing 20 years ago, that kind of that need. With you, there's so much change. Has it ever been a burden? Has it ever gotten to where you're just pulling your hair out and there's got to be an easier way to make a living?
That's true. That's true of any business. Right. There's definitely been inflection points where I'm like, oh my God, what are we going to do now?
Right.
It can be a technical kind of leap that we have to make, but it's fun. To me, that's the fun part of being an entrepreneur. You can look at it through either lens. You can look at it as like, this is discouraging. We're going to have to keep evolving and investing in our business, or we can get out.
Right.
But really just kind of staying static is not an option.
Right.
So you're right about that. You have to keep moving.
Right. How do you stay kind of encouraged? One of the things that when you and I were talking about you joining me on the podcast, you were saying you listen to a lot of podcasts.
I do.
How many did you say a day?
Probably 3 a day on average. Wow. I'm a bit of probably no surprise. I enjoy information, so I take it wherever I can get it, whether it's reading, listening to podcasts, watching the news, listening to the news. Right. I just really enjoy getting a lot of information, and that helps me in my day job. It helps me to take a lot in, filter out what works for us.
As a leader, how big is the team here at Metro Monitoring?
So we have 6 people here in Birmingham in our Birmingham office, and then we partner with about 20 other companies across the country. Wow. So collectively, we're about 150 people.
Yeah.
And then I'll also say our big secret weapon is all of our computers. So we're people plus about 500 computer servers that make this happen on behalf of our clients.
Yeah. As a leader, how do you what has kind of been? First of all, let me ask you, who are the most influential leaders who have influenced you and made you into the leader that you are as you head this company today?
Influence is clearly my parents. They've been a huge influence. From a, I guess, corporate perspective, I'm more in that tech focus. So I'm a Jeff Bezos kind of fan. Those tech people that really are moving the needle in interesting ways. So I just read the Elon Musk biography of. And that's those kind of folks that are doing really big things. I'm not trying to compare us to what they do.
I get you.
But I find inspiration in those kind of leaders.
Yeah. You also, ever since I've known you, you seem to be a glass half full kind of guy. Is that a misread on me, or is that kind of who you are?
No, that's mostly true. I think being an entrepreneur, you definitely have days where you're like always a little bit paranoid, looking for the next shoe to drop. But that keeps us on our toes. Right. But yes, I'm mostly half full, but there are days for sure where I'm like, ugh, it's a grind. Yeah,
we all have those.
That's
days.
Right.
Yeah. You also, it seems as though you surround yourself with people that can either kind of mentorship or accountability. I don't know what you are. I know there's one group in particular that you're a part of.
That's right.
EO, is that?
Yeah, Entrepreneurs Organization, EO for short.
Right.
I've joined EO a couple of years ago, and it's an international group, but they have a local chapter here in Birmingham.
Right.
And it's really active. Right now we have 52 local entrepreneurs, and I would encourage anybody who's interested in the Birmingham community that's looking for a group to join that might be able to help.
What has been the advantage for you of being a part of that group?
Yeah, the advantage there is we actually meet once a month for half a day in small groups. So you have about 7 or 8 other entrepreneurs you can meet with that are similar sized business. Some are bigger, some are smaller. But you get to share your problems, your thoughts. If you're looking at new opportunities, you can vet them through this group. So it's been very helpful.
Yeah. You also, just again by observance, you and I don't know that we've ever discussed this, but as I think about Bryan Council, you seem to be big on Birmingham.
I am. It's a good observation.
Yeah, and I mean big on the city of Birmingham. Right. Your offices are in the heart of the city. Why are you so bullish on Birmingham?
I think it's in the blood. I would say I'm a product of Birmingham. I've lived generally in the city center my whole life. I went to Birmingham Southern College. I went to John Carroll High School. Traveled a lot, but I always come back here. I think Birmingham's a great place to call home. It's a good base. It's a great place to build a business. Right. I mean, we have the right mix of corporate customers that can help get a business off the ground, and I believe Birmingham is supportive of the entrepreneurial community. Yeah. But right now, I think we could all agree we're at an inflection point in Birmingham's history. There's so much positive momentum in terms of real estate development. I would say anything from Avondale Park to Railroad Park is all good news.
Right.
You can't walk anywhere on that path and not see something that should make you happy.
I know you've also been an investor, and you are very entrepreneurial. You kind of had several roles in that. I was having a conversation with a fellow similar to you, kind of reminds me of you, a guy who has a business here, and he is just really passionate about encouraging folks with ideas and that to go for that startup, to take it out of your basement or just your brain, to go out there and to do it. There seems to be a lot of that happening in Birmingham. So what would your advice, first of all, to be someone who kind of thinks they're listening and they've got an idea and they're trying to pick the brains of guys like you to make sure their idea makes sense? What advice would you give them if somebody listening has an idea that they think is ready to go to market and they're ready to launch this thing?
Two things. I think it is important to reach out to people who have done it before. I think listening to things like this podcast are helpful.
Thank you.
So you have to reach out. You have to vet your idea. But at the end of the day, some of the best ideas that actually make it to market are the ideas that seem not very good in the beginning. Even this idea, when my parents first discussed it, I told them, I said, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard of. People are going to pay you to watch the TV. But here I am all these years later doing it. So I think that. I also think you just actually have to do it. You have to draw that line in the sand, pick a date on the calendar, and do it. I would say start as young as possible. It's easier when you're single, no kids, to take those risks. And if you're not, be sure you've got some resources set aside, because it takes a while to go from zero to a thriving business.
When you look at where Metro Monitor is today versus where your parents started it, it's like it's a different business in many ways.
It is.
I don't know who came up with this, but I've been using it lately quite a bit, and it's the philosophy of ready, shoot, aim is really the way to go about business. You spend as much time as you can, try to get folks who are smart and wise and been there and done that and get great advice. So get ready, but then shoot, because what's going to happen is you're going to have to figure out, and maybe where you start is not going to be where you end up.
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, you agree with that?
We do that often in our business. We experiment with different tools we can use in our business, and sometimes we're like, we're not sure if it'll help or not, but let's invest a little money, see if it works. 90% of the time, it's a non-starter. It doesn't help us at all. I think the podcast I was just mentioning, that's a good example of something where we believe there's a product there that will help our customers.
Right.
And it's a differentiator for us. Whether or not it's going to move the needle in a meaningful way, we don't know yet. But we're willing to take those small risks.
It is interesting, the momentum and all that's kind of going on in the city of Birmingham. It's exciting to see to me.
It is.
Because I mean, as the city goes, this whole area goes. So it's incredibly important to foster that. What advice do you have? Again, we have a lot of folks who listen. I get feedback from you, and I actually got feedback from you about a podcast episode. I appreciate that. But there's a lot of folks who have ideas and they're sitting on them. They're just like, I want to make sure that the timing is right. And so often it seems like fear of failure, the fear of risk and just having what it takes, kind of moving from zero just to start. It's like miles long. So what any advice to that person?
I think it's important to start anything. If you try to... There is such a thing as analysis paralysis. If you look at the whole business and all the million little things you have to do, whether it's just getting a business license, own up. I mean, there's a million things that take time. But you have to start with one thing. So that would be my advice, is just action, and view every day as a brick in your building that you're building. And everything you do on your to-do list is adding a nice new brick to your structure.
How important is it to get away and unplug as a leader, and especially you are a thought leader. You're a lot of what you do really is think and strategize, and it's less action. It's almost what you've got to do before you know the next step to take. You and I are friends on Facebook. I see some of the trips you and your wife take, and they are fantastic.
Yes.
Is that one of the ways that you kind of recharge?
I do, and I think travel to me has always been, it's enjoyable, but we like to travel internationally. I think it's been a big factor for me just to totally get away. When you go to a totally different culture, it's hard to worry about what's going on back home.
You're going totally. I think I remember a picture of you on a camel. I think.
Yeah, that was recent. We went to Morocco. So
you're getting
when
away.
You're on a camel, you're not thinking about what's going on back here at the office. You're just trying to stay on the camel.
Exactly.
But you learn a lot by trying to. When you're traveling, especially in a different culture, you're learning 24/7. You're not on autopilot, so your senses are up. You're kind of trying to communicate with people that don't speak the same language or eating different food. So yes, it's easy to get in a rut when you're doing the same thing every day, 365. So I think it is important at least once a quarter to reboot, whether it's just a day off to go somewhere locally.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you have the luxury to be able to travel somewhere that's different, I encourage it.
We have a guest, a fellow coming up on the podcast who is a president of a company they have 300 employees, and he was talking about how he used to think being in charge was being able to do everything and anything, and he doesn't discount the value of being able to do that. But he says the greatest thing he can do is to get away and think about where they're headed, where the market's headed, where they need to be in a year. That is where he's most valuable. Not doing a job that somebody else can do, because as president, as leader, that's really only he can head the company in the direction. He's the one that people depend on for the vision of where we're headed and where the market is. Is that something you found out as well?
Absolutely. The EO group we talked about, I spend a lot of time out of the office meeting with other entrepreneurs, other business leaders, and it's at least a couple of times a week that I'm not in the office physically. I'm out in the community either talking to a customer, talking to a partner. So yeah, I spend a lot of time. And I was actually looking at a notebook. I keep a lot of notes on just strategy and what I think we can do next. And I was looking this morning, and yeah, for the past year, you can look back. It's fun to look back in time and see what were we thinking strategically 6 months ago, and actually seeing some of those things actually happen right now is fun.
Right. A couple of different questions from me. First of all is about the succession here, from your father leading this venture to now you leading it. Any secrets or tips as to how that works? Sometimes that does not work at all. So how did you guys make it work?
It's never a thing, honestly. We were lucky, I guess. I mean, we've always had a close family relationship. So, yeah, that's never been a problem at all.
Right.
It's just been pleasant.
I mean, but strategically, was there anything you guys did that you think, if you were to advise someone who a father wants to pass it on to his kids, any tips or advice there as to how to do it effectively?
Personally, I think that my work prior to joining the company was an important piece, like being out in the corporate world, working with other people, for other people, gives you some experience. I think it's hard if you just grow up in a family business and never have been out in, quote, the real world.
Right.
I think that was a key thing for me, to be able to come in with some real experience in the corporate world.
Yeah. How are you different as a leader today as we sit here versus when you got the keys to all this? How have you changed?
Yeah.
Because that's how many years now?
17. Okay. I would say if you were to look at me 17 years ago, there's some things that haven't changed at all. Still basically the same guy. I would say I am less hands-on today than I was in the beginning, because in the beginning you're doing everything. You're doing the books, you're signing the checks, you're editing the video clips, you're recording the news, you're the tech guy. So yes, it's evolved from that, and over the years I've found different ways to outsource some of those functions. So I do have more time to think strategically.
Yeah. You like where you are still?
I do. I love it.
You having fun?
I am having fun.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to the next 17. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, you're a young guy. You got a
I'm
long
youngish.
time.
Yeah.
You're young. It's awesome to catch up with you, Bryan. Good to see you
Good
as
to see you.
always. And congrats on the success of Metro Monitor and all that you're involved in. You're certainly an asset to this city. So thank you for all you do.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bryan.
Thanks.
Always great to spend time with Bryan, a friend of many years and a truly awesome leader. We have bonus content from our conversation at the Blueprint Podcast Facebook page. You can find that at Blueprint Pod. That's also a great way to interact with the Blueprint community. Other like-minded entrepreneurs looking to learn, grow, and build great businesses. Thanks so much for the opportunity to get together with you. That's what I love to do most, so thanks for making it happen. We will see you next time right here on the Blueprint Podcast.
The Blueprint Podcast with David Lamb. Ted Putman, executive producer. Robbie Lamb, web guru. The Blueprint Podcast, copyright 2017 DLN.